All right, let's talk Ohio State Buckeyes. Got some exciting news for you, Ohio State fans. And look, it's been a heck of an offseason for you guys. A lot of great additions. And look, I know a lot of you guys are going to be saying, look, this is what we've come to expect. We demand this kind of success. And frankly, we haven't been getting it at the end of the season the past few years. I understand completely. I understand the frustrations, but you know it. We know it. Everybody knows it. Success on Saturdays is predicated on winning big time recruiting battles. And Ohio State has just pulled off another massive victory on that front. Let's pull up this report and then we can talk about it more in detail. On the other side, this is from 24/7 Sports. An Ohio State visit was a late addition for Jarquez Carter. Each weekend of June was accounted for on his official visit calendar, so the Newberry High defensive lineman shoehorned in a midweek official visit to Ohio State. It proved to be the pivotal visit because the 6'2", 284-pound Carter announced his commitment to the Buckeyes on Thursday. The Buckeyes had Carter on its radar for a while. They offered in November, and defensive line coach Larry Johnson stayed in contact with him, which was meaningful as the process reached its conclusion. Look, we all know it. If Larry Johnson's in on a player, that usually means he's going to be a special guy for Ohio State. So huge victory here for the Buckeyes, obviously from a massive recruiting of State, Florida. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. But first, Ohio State fans, in the comment section below, we're talking about Carter here. We're talking about a recruit from the state of Florida, which leads me to ask you guys, who is your favorite Ohio State player that's from the great state of Florida? That's a state where I spent most of my life growing up. I love that state. I'm from the Panhandle personally, but I'm going to ask you guys, who is your favorite Ohio State player from the state of Florida? And make sure you put them in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest recruiting victory for Ohio State?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It's really just intriguing to me. And I think this is kind of where Ohio State needs to get back to its roots in a sense. I think this pickup shows like they're getting deep into the weeds. This is a guy, like you said, middle of nowhere, Florida, Newberry, Florida. I think before the show, I had to ask you, like, where is Newberry, Florida? I don't think very many people know where Newberry, Florida is, especially the football coming out of Newberry, Florida. This guy, per 24/7 Sports, is about a 3-star recruit if you use the composite grade, which was all of them together. He's just over the edge to be technically a 4-star guy. But I think this is what Ohio State is doing. They're getting in the weeds. They're finding these special players buried deep in the middle of nowhere. They're offering them early. They're offering back in November. And then they're staying on top of it. Like I said, Larry Johnson stayed in communication with him, followed up, texts them, calls them, checks in on them. And that proved to be the deciding factor at the end of the day, getting him to commit to Ohio State. Now, I know as a player, it's probably not very difficult to commit to a team like Ohio State. Huge championship pedigree, all the money in the world, elite facilities, great fan base. So it's an easy decision there. But there's a lot of other teams out there. And for him to be able, or for Ohio State rather, to be able to go out there, find this guy, keep on him, and him be a little lower level guy on paper, middle of nowhere, not that many people know about him. I think that's what they need to get back to doing when it comes to recruiting. Because yes, they can get the mega 5-star guys. Yes, they can get all of this top tier talent. But what makes a team great and what really builds those recruiting chops is focusing on those under the radar gems and getting them, because those are guys who are going to be very important to your team as well.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. But look, when you're talking about a kid, a prospect from Newberry, Florida, to put it in perspective, Newberry is a town of about 7,500 people. That's like 2 or 3 sections in Ohio Stadium, right? It's a nothing, middle of nowhere town. I remember it just being sort of just south a little bit of I-10 going across the state, right? It is country, backwater, small town, you name it, right? There's not a lot of big names kind of Newberry, Florida regularly. Of course, now that I say that, I'm sure there's one superstar that I'm forgetting. But generally speaking, Newberry, Florida is not known for being like Miami, right? Not known for being Houston, Dallas, Cleveland, Cincinnati, obviously small town. And yet, despite that, despite being a small town, very kind of minor-ish recruit, Ohio State's been very aggressive with this kid. Larry Johnson is very aggressive with them. They offered him back in November, stayed in touch, really pushed the pedal to the metal. Were willing and able to bring him in for a midweek visit, which is obviously surprising Ohio State. A lot of times they don't have to do that. To me, that's an indication that Larry Johnson, Ryan Day, the entire coaching staff, they believe they have something special here in Carter. I think they got a steal. The composite score has him just over the line as a 4-star, like you mentioned. The regular score has him 3-star. I think it's clear that Ohio State believes that Carter and their system, with their staff, with their coaching, he's a 5-star. He's a superstar. He's a future NFL guy. He's a leading force on their defensive line. There's no other reason for Ohio State to spend all this effort from a kid, again, from a town in Florida that's got 7,500 people into it, right? And then that's not knocking Newberry. Just the reality is, obviously, Ohio State can really go after almost any recruit they can in the country. The fact that they're spending so much resources on Carter, I think, is a sign they love this kid and they think his potential is absolutely endless. If they're right, which I think there's a strong chance they are, Larry Johnson's been right a whole heck of a lot more than he's been wrong. Ohio State picked up a massive steal here.